Apparently, this claim about alien experiments is breaking people's brain. This is an interview between some lady named Jillian Michaels. I don't know much of anything about her, but here we go.
Okay, so where do we start? Should we start with an alien hybrid breeding program where they're...
Alien hybrid breeding program. I've heard about this before. I remember like when I was a kid, I used to watch the History Channel, the Ancient Aliens show. And I think that was like one of the episodes where it was like the aliens were just taking people, taking eggs and sperm, mixing stuff up, and then just putting them back down. Now, personally, I don't think the aliens are coming from like a different planet. I do think that they exist within our universe, but they're just in another dimension. I personally don't think that these are just like beings. I think they're like, fallen angels and demons and stuff that are just, running amok, just doing a bunch of crazy stuff. But let's continue.
Capturing caravans of immigrants and forcing them into this, or should we start with the fact that a congressman who is well respected thinks that if this is fully disclosed, it's going to set the country on fire? I'm going to hand this one over to you here. I'm speechless.
Sure. Well, first,
just to be real with you, I don't think it's going to set nothing on fire because these gas prices is crazy. This could not have been the worst time to try and disclose all of this information because people are still like, hey, can I get a raise? We can't afford gas and y'all want us to believe in aliens?
First of all, I've had the privilege of speaking to Representative Tim Burchett and his colleagues. And
all right, this is going to be the last time that I that I stopped this, but this dude, honestly, he kind of looks like that one actor. What's his name? You can't tell me that this dude is not Tom Arnold, bro. Jillian Michaels is interviewing Tom Arnold, bro. They should. So I believe him now. These alien experiments is crazy. They done hybrided the alien and Tom Arnold, and now they got this dude. He a whistleblower. He came straight from the experiments.
What he's saying regarding access to very sensitive information, he's absolutely correct. Some of the people that briefed those individuals, I personally know. They were colleagues of mine back in the day. He's absolutely correct that some of the population, I think, would probably be potentially concerned about how much we know about this topic, and for several reasons we can go into that. Now, as far as this notion of alien crossbreeding and hybridization, let me just preface this. When I was in the Pentagon at ATIP, I was a nuts and bolts kind of guy, so really airframe, air integrity, the material science and propulsion behind the vehicles themselves, not so much the occupants. But what Gates is referring to is something called, in the vernacular, it's known throughout kind of the UFO community as my labs. And what is
my labs. Right now, I think he said something about their propulsion system. As you can tell, I'm not the best listener, so I'm still kind of stuck on the fact this dude kind of looked like Tom Arnold. But yeah, let me shut up, man.
Suggests is that there's been a long-standing agreement or understanding between us and our friends from out of town that have allowed us to work with whatever these are, in a cooperative agreement, and in exchange for that, supposedly they would have access to certain human specimens biologically in order to test. I have to say, first and foremost, I heard about that while I was at the Pentagon. I was not privy to the specifics of that. From my understanding, that relationship began, if it is true, sometime in the 1950s.
Damn, so they human trafficking to the aliens, bruh? I was like, man, like if it is true, maybe I was tripping earlier about the whole gasoline situation thing, but man, if it come out that our government is human trafficking to the aliens, bro, that probably would break people up. I was just like, you got us going back and forth down here, running amok, looking for people. Jeffrey Epstein holding case files and stuff. It was like, no wonder. Maybe the Epstein Island is where like it was probably home base where these aliens would come and stuff. And it's not to make fun of it or anything like that. I'm not doing that, but I'm just kind of throwing it out there. You know, maybe they had some other dealings. Like, again, stuff like this, I don't think these are like aliens or friends from out of town. I think these are interdimensional beings who can fold in and out of the third and the fourth dimension. I do not think that these dudes is traveling here from the edge of the universe. Because think about it, man. Anytime that you hear somebody getting abducted by one of these things, anytime that they're on like an operating table, these aliens will pull out rusty knives, stuff that we would use here. And on top of that, like, people that have been abducted, as soon as they call on Jesus' name, the whole experience is over. And honestly, to me, a lot of the abduction stories, it sounds just like sleep paralysis. I used to get sleep paralysis a lot, and I would see these beings, right? Tall, they just floating. It seems like they just like glide over the floor and stuff. Terrifying, man. It's like weird stuff. But as soon as you call on the name of Jesus, bro, the whole experience is over.
And has continued. I have met several individuals, former intelligence officers for the Air Force and other services, who swear by it, who actually say they've had encounters with UAP and have seen military personnel in and around the vehicles, and as if, you know, very nonchalant, as if it was supposed to be. You know, I have to be careful with going into any type of speculation about hybridization or any type of scientific study or research, because, again, that was not my forte. But what I will say is I've had...
Bro, read in Genesis, I think it's in chapter 3. I could be wrong. But read in Genesis, like the stuff that he's talking about, right? You can read this in the Bible when it talks about how the sons of God looked upon the daughters of man and saw that they were beautiful, and they came down and they started creating these beings, mixing. You know, there's a lot of interpretation about it, but the stuff that this guy's talking about, like, we can read it in Genesis. You know, you could even read it in the book of Enoch. The book of Enoch kind of goes into further detail. But the stuff he's talking about, hybridization, is like the only difference that I see is that we live in a world or a society that will reject God and just see the world as being just more physical than anything. So these fallen angels and these demons and things like that, I think what's going on is that they're just catering their own methods according to the times. So because we are more of advanced society, we rely more on just, you know, science, which isn't a bad thing or anything. I don't think that there's any separation between, you know, faith and science. I think they're one and the same, because God created everything and he allows us to be able to reason with what he created. So he gave us a mind to rationally think about things, and he doesn't stop us from looking at the molecular structures and, you know, the quantum physics, and understand how all of these things operate and how all these things work together in the world that he created. But going back to what I was saying, these angels, these fallen demons and stuff, they just cater their methods to our current time so that we can believe in whatever it is that they're presenting. I just think that they do it in a way that just seems to be a little bit further ahead than where we currently are. If that makes any sense.
Plenty of individuals tell me verbatim that the military is far more, the military industrial complex is far more involved in this topic than anyone really knows. There are cases which seem rather interesting, where you have, in some cases, UAP potentially being escorted by American fighter jets and allied fighter jets. So that would give you some sense of cooperation, maybe between us and whatever they are. I can't tell you for certain, because simply I wasn't privy to that, if that indeed existed. But I will also say it's really not that far of a stretch if we were to come into contact with, let's say, just another nation, right? So let's look at it this way from a real perspective.
I ain't gonna lie, this Jillian lady, she's freaking me out with this face that she's making. Her face is like she's looking at a crazy person talk, or it's like she can't believe that she's talking to Tom Arnold. She's like, this dude is not who he says he is. This is Tom Arnold, but I don't know.
There are tribes right now that are isolated in the Amazon, and also in the South Pacific, and we have these no-go zones. Basically, you know, we're not going to interfere with these indigenous people and their development, because they've never had outside exposure. They haven't been exposed to, you know, recent diseases and things like that, and it could cause a significant problem for them. But once one culture decides to engage another culture here on Earth, right? Forget about out there, just right here.
True.
You have an exchange of ideas. You have agreements between the different peoples.
Read the book Enoch, dog. It goes into detail. It talks about how the fallen angels, they came down. They was teaching magic. They was teaching like how to make weapons of warfare. They was teaching like all types of stuff, bro. It was crazy. It was crazy, man. It was crazy.
Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. You can go back and look at the conquistadors during their La Reconquista, or the reconquering, where their interaction with indigenous people didn't go so well, right? Same here in the United States, where we maybe did some things that we probably shouldn't have towards indigenous people.
Did some things.
In other cases, it was a little bit more symbiotic. So let's get back to the question you're having, specifically about hybrids and alien hybrids. I don't know. I do know that there are people out there that swear by it. There are people that have been in the military and intelligence officials that have told me it, that have no reason to question their credibility. They've never lied to me, certainly. But I don't have firsthand knowledge of that, of hybridization or forced hybridization. And if that is the case, then I think Representative Burchett is absolutely correct, because if now we have, if it's true that there's a scenario where we have elements of the American government wittingly cooperating with something else and allowing human beings to be against their own will, right, be taken.
Yeah.
Well, from my perspective, when I was a special agent, that's called kidnapping, right? That's a felony offense.
Yeah.
And then if they are touched in any way, right, that's called assault, right? So there's a lot of issues here that legally, fundamentally, I think we would have a problem with. Then.
Yeah, bro, it's rules for thee and not for me, man. And it's like it's a tale as old as time, bro. You get higher and higher up beyond the realms of like what keeps a society together, and then you start meeting people that just operate completely outside of all of that. And we all know this. We see this with the billionaires. We see this with government officials, like people going into political profession where the profession itself caps out at like $40,000 a year. They be in there for 2 years and come out multi-millionaires. Like, come on, man. It's not really surprising that our government would be involved in or doing some type of stuff like this. You know what I'm saying? It's like when Trump got into office and he was talking about he's going to release the Epstein files. I think he saw his name in there and was like, nah, they don't exist. We live in a world, we are governed by the intangible. Societies that are functioning are governed by what's intangible, right? And it's not to say like these intangible things are like worthless or useless or anything like that, but there are people who do enforce these things that do see them as worthless and useless to them, and they try to operate above it. And exactly what this man is saying is not surprising, because our government's been doing this anyway. The only difference is just the level of power that you actually have. If you're like me and you decide you want to operate like this, bro, you going to jail. But if you have influence over how a country's economic system is affected, ain't nothing happening to you. Do whatever flipping thing that you want to do. They ain't gonna mess with you. That's probably why if these aliens really are traveling here, they probably don't peep game. They like, hey, these people over here willing to do anything. Let's go talk to them real quick. See what we can get off.
You have the other information that I know Representative Burchett has had access to, along with some of his other colleagues like Luna and Burleson. That could be very disturbing, because it shows that maybe we have been a little bit more complicit with this topic than we had previously stated. Keep in mind, we spent decades saying nothing to see here, folks. It's not real. This is not, this is silly.
Yeah.
Turns out we were spending a lot of taxpayer money, a lot of your money, actually, researching this topic, and I was part of that effort, and so were many of my colleagues. And it turns out that, there are things that go bump in the night, and that can.
Man, spend some tax money on how to replace all this oil stuff, so we ain't got to be so dependent. Spend the tax dollars into that. I don't care about alien cheek clapping allegations, bro.
Can be very disturbing for some people, especially from a philosophical perspective or a theological perspective, and even a psychological perspective.
Okay, so two things jump out at me right away that make me struggle with this. Number one, genetically, how in the world could you possibly sync up humanity and whatever this non-intelligence may be. It'd be like crossbreeding us with a dog, I imagine.
Have y'all looked at the walls in Egypt, the hieroglyphics? Human beings with eagle heads. Human beings with the heads of jackals. I get what she's saying. I get it. These ain't flesh and blood creatures we talking about. These are creatures that know how to manipulate material. They understand how God created this stuff and how it works. They understand it. They live, they exist, they pervert and destroy, and that's the only goal. That's it. That's it, bro.
And a dog has evolved on Earth. It doesn't make sense, Lou. How would that even be possible?
No, that's a great question. In fact, we've already done it before with other things. We've actually crossbred rats and their DNA with jellyfish. And
if we can figure it out, they definitely know how to do it.
Now these rats glow. There's bioluminescence. Imagine that, a glowing rat, right? Or a glowing sheep. So we've already done that, actually. From a scientific perspective, it's not that hard. And frankly, when you look at the genetics, I think we share something like 90% of our DNA with a banana, right? So it's not really that far off. We are already crossbreeding to bring animals back from extinction, like the dire wolf, right? So we are well beyond that. Can we take DNA from something else and mix it with human DNA? Yes, it can be done. We've already done it with animals, and that's common knowledge. Anybody can get on a search engine and type in, glow-in-the-dark rats or glow-in-the-dark sheep, and you will see where we have crossbred jellyfish.
I'd hate to be that sheep running away from a wolf. Could you imagine? Bro, they should do that with the habitual offenders, the people that need to be watched. You know what I'm saying? People that get put on the list, mix them up with some jellyfish bioluminescence. Hey, you see Mr. Joseph's down there? Yeah, you see how he's glowing in the dark? Yeah, don't go to his house. Don't go to his house, little Timmy. Something wrong with him. He lit.
with mammalian DNA. And I suspect in China they've gone much further than that. There are ethical issues with it, but I think scientifically, when you're saying how do we crossbreed, it can be done. And I'll also suggest something else very interesting you said, because Jillian, I think it's a really important question you're asking here. How can you take DNA that is terrestrial here from Earth and find, you can argue the fact that maybe jellyfish are from Earth, and so therefore there's some similarity with something completely not human. But we don't know that. It is possible that there is some sort of linkage there.
In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. There is a linkage. Even like let's say these were creatures from like a completely different, planetary system, which I don't think it is. Right. In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. Everything is created with a sense of with a thread that is common. Like our DNA closely matches a banana more than it does with monkeys, the ones that they say that we come from.
Maybe either in our distant history, in our past, where these things are not so dissimilar. Look, they've been reported for having bilateral symmetry, having two arms, two legs, very similar to humanoid type morphology. That suggests a lot of things. Either A, the human form is very, very common in the cosmos, or B, that there's a common link somewhere between human beings and potentially higher primates and whoever these are. And if you go down that logic trail, then you have to ask a question that maybe our friends from out of town aren't really from outer space at all. Maybe they're from right here. Maybe they are from under our oceans. Maybe these things are just as natural to Earth as we are, but we're now at the point technologically where we can actually begin to interact with them. So that's another potential.
This was cool. Jillian Michaels and Tom Arnold discuss UFO files. And with that, I'm out of here.